the ads about the 2022 ACHE Congress that will be on March 28 to 31. So maybe some of you here are already registered to attend the Congress. So it's going to be face-to-face, first time after 2 years, before the pandemic. So we just want everyone know about this big event happening next week. So next slide, please.
One second.
Sure. So again, good morning. Welcome to our third week of the Board of Governors exam preparation series. So on behalf of the California Association of Healthcare Leaders and the San Diego Organization of Healthcare Leaders, we would like to welcome you all for this third week, and we are grateful and thankful that you are here with us today. And today we will be tackling the management and leadership, which is 26 questions in the exam, which is constituting 13%, and the business knowledge, which is 18 questions and 9%. So before we will proceed to the main event or main topic today, we would like to welcome our committee, members of the committee who made this review series happen. Start with myself. I'm Michael DeCoco.
Nor Powers.
Rick Norrid.
Sachin.
Good morning. This is Sachin Gangupantala.
And I'm Tweedo. Hi, everyone.
And we would like also to introduce our partners from San Diego Organization of Healthcare Leaders.
Hi, good morning. I'm Jessica Taylor.
Hi, good morning, Jane Frevels.
And thank you. And next slide, please. We have some FAQ and updates for you, and I think this is for Twee.
Thank you, Michael. So we have some upcoming events from Cal. So after this session here, we'll be sharing with you the slide decks. And if you'd like to click on some of the links for Cal and for Soul Spring events, it'll lead you to the events page. There's going to be some exciting stuff. As Michael has announced earlier, that with the ACHE Congress approaching, there's going to be some California chapters that will be meeting together on March 27th. That's a Sunday at the Hyatt. I think Sachin mentioned there's going to be over 100 people there. So it'll be a very exciting reunion for a lot of us. And secondly, there's going to be the College Bowl this spring in Irvine in April. So they're seeking judges for that event, and the hours will be counted towards your healthcare volunteer requirements when you're receiving your fellowship and things of that nature. So if you want to go onto their website, they'll have more information provided for you. And I think there's going to be communication following if you're interested. Thank you.
And next slide. So we have our test taking tips for session.
Sure. Thanks everyone for joining this morning. I've recently taken the exam as of December, so I have a few things fresh in my mind. One thing that's pretty important is because the length of the exam is over 6 hours, there is no need for you to kind of stress out or rush through things. Always have relaxation in your mind, good breathing, especially some other questions. Sometimes they're long to read, so take your time to read that. So you actually have some time to make it happen. The good option is that you always have a way to revisit questions that you are not sure of, or you want to come back and read again. So always mark that questions that way so you can come back. One of the other good tips is to make sure to read each of the options as true or false. So just to be clear, all the questions, all the 200 odd questions are multiple choice questions. So there is no, open-ended questions. So, or multiple choice questions. So which means that you have a good approach to read the options, eliminate the false ones, and then you can narrow down the choices that way. But by evaluating every choice as a true and false, you actually can narrow down it much quicker. They do give you a piece of paper, and if you have any questions specific to that, just write it down and revisit that. Obviously, there's question numbers to it as well. There are, beware of the questions with all of the above or all except, because those are the ones that can trip you up in terms of choosing the right answer. And I don't think there's a limit on the breaks. I took 2 breaks, but just make sure that you keep track of your time, but you are able to take the breaks by, let's see, I think it's usually water breaks, but they don't let you outside the building, but do not stress on the time frames because of that. I was able to complete all of the questions by around 4.5 hours or so, but I did have a chance to go back and review some of the questions. I marked them. One other recommendation I always have is, since there is no negative marking on the questions, do not leave any question unanswered. So one strategy is to mark a question as to revisit, but make sure if you have a first instinct about an answer, choose that answer first and then mark it for review. But usually at least for me, the first answer that you feel comes to your mind usually has worked out for me. So I didn't have to revisit and break my head and suddenly I chose the wrong answer when I come back to it. So just, it depends on how each of you approach the test. I've seen in the US, test taking is an art and a skill. So you gotta just, based on how often you can practice, it helps you. I know some of us haven't taken tests in a while, but it always helps to kind of go through those. Look for the key terms. There are, so some of the questions answers themselves. They use specific keywords, and then you look for those keywords in the answers as well. So you actually can correlate. Sometimes those are the easier ones. So always look for those keywords, key terms. And there's also on the flip side, distractive words and even options that are completely out of context. Those are the ones easy to eliminate right off the boat. But I think the most important thing is always not to stress out and take your time to answer. And also the breathing techniques that we always recommend help you to kind of make sure that you're not, because you will end up getting topics that you have never read about or experienced. So having a few seconds of your time to just take a good breath helps you to kind of clear your mind. Hope that helps.
Thank you, Sachin. Next slide, please. Okay, so we are at the point that we're going to start the question and answer for management and leadership. And I will be your facilitator for this body of knowledge. So basically, this management and leadership has, as I mentioned, 26 questions, and it focuses mainly on principles of and applications of management and leadership. We all know that management and leadership are 2 different words, and it has different functions. So these are all the body of knowledge that you're expected to know before taking the exam. And the next slide, please. So this is the continuation of the different elements in this umbrella. So mostly it's all about how you lead your organization or how you lead your department. So next slide, please. Okay, first question. So the first question is, let me just, a transformational leader adopts and applies evidence-based leadership in their practice, and the application of evidence-based practice in healthcare management is more challenging compared to the clinical practice setting because A, the culture in healthcare management is much professionalized with much less formal body of knowledge and great diversity among practitioners. B, the decision-making in healthcare management is supported by various support systems, such as handbooks and guidelines, making it complicated. C, the difference of the context or content of the research evidence from a clinical perspective to management perspective is non-comparable. And D, the culture is in healthcare management is highly professionalized with strong formal body of knowledge. So feel free to put your answers at the chat box. Okay, there's some D here. So as I'm waiting for the answers. So in these questions, you have to remember keywords, as Sashan mentioned: transformational leader, evidence-based leadership, and clinical practice setting, and challenging. Those are the keywords that I'm gonna look at this question. And if you remember, if you can see, this is wordy. There's a lot. It can, it's hard. It makes me lazy to read the question. So don't do that. Make it sure that you read everything. So those are the three questions, the keywords that I'm gonna ask. So let's look at the
Michael, can I butt in for a second here on that?
Sure. Go ahead.
If you read that sentence, a transformational leader adapts and applies evidence-based leadership, doesn't matter. That's not part of the question, really. It's extra words, because the question really is the application of evidence-based practice is more challenging. Exactly. So the whole thing about transformational leader really just distracts you, and I would just eliminate it from your mind and go to what are they really asking?
Yeah. So that's a good point, Rick. It's the application of this evidence-based practice. So let's look, what's the answer, right? Next slide. It's A, right? It says the culture in healthcare management is much less professionalized with much less formal body of knowledge and great diversity among practitioners. That's why it becomes more challenging to apply compared to the clinical practice setting, right? Because in the clinical practice setting, there are more formalized, there are more peer-reviewed clinical practice guidelines that they are using. That's why in healthcare management, we are applying what we're doing in a daily life activities, right? So that's why it makes more challenging. And if you see the B, the healthcare management is it supported by handbooks and guidelines? I'm gonna say false to that, right? And this C, difference of context or content of research evidence from a clinical perspective to management perspective is non-comparable. This is just a statement not related to the question. This is a distractor. And the culture in healthcare management is highly professionalized with a strong formal body of knowledge. Is this true? I would say this is false, right? Because it's not highly professionalized. There's no formal body of knowledge in healthcare management. So that's how I'm gonna, answer this question.
I would say that B and D, if they were true, which it is arguable, but if it was true, would support the use of evidence-based practice. So they're looking for things that are challenging, means you can eliminate those two and just concentrate on A and C.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Next question. So the U.S. healthcare industry is highly diverse, and to address the ongoing challenges of workforce diversity, an organization should A, expand the market share by adding or enhancing services that target diverse population. B, develop a linkage between the marketplace and the workforce that will enhance diverse recruitment, development, and retaining of employees. Develop a diversity educational tools available both to the workforce and to the community. develop and implement workforce policies and management practices, maximize the talent and productivity of employees with diverse background. So in this question, you have to know about workforce diversity and initiatives of workforce diversity in your organization. So I'm seeing B here. What else? B, D. Okay. So let's look at the answer. And the answer is B. Develop and implement workforce policies and management practices, maximize the talent and productivity of employees with diverse background. So,
One of the problems with this one is that all four I find very attractive answers, at least on the surface. So I eliminated A and B because they were not really concentrating on the workforce as much as other factors, marketplace, market share. So I kind of ignored those. And then I had it down as C or D. C went back to the community. D was much more focused on the workforce, which is back to the question. So that's how I got to D, was by slowly eliminating A, B, and C, even though all of them sound like they're potentially good ideas.
Yeah, that's a great point. Rationale is so helpful. Yeah, Richard, yeah. They said your rationale is so helpful, Rick. Okay, next question. So the purpose of management in a healthcare organization is to A, oversee appointment of competent medical staff to render care for the service area. B, appoint an effective governing board based on the wishes of the medical staff. C, implement the mission, strategies, and goals established by the governing board. And D, implement stakeholder wishes on the future direction of the organization should take.
Well, I'd eliminate A because it's one thing that the organization does, but not necessarily management. Technically, that's a governing board function.
Exactly.
As much as I would love to appoint my governing board, I guess I don't get to do that. Darn. Implement the mission strategies. Yeah, that's really why I'm there. Implement stakeholder wishes. I can't do all of them. I might do some, but it's really, again, coming back from the governing board. So I've got a false, false, true, false, and I would go with C.
Let's see if Rick is correct. Yay. Yes, yeah, C, yeah, because it's as Rick mentioned, the A, B, and C are more on the medical staff governing board. And if you can observe in this question, it again overlaps with the governing bodies later on. So, and as a manager or leader, you should have a knowledge on this. That's why it's in this area as well. Okay, next question. An effective emergency disaster preparedness plan includes triaging arriving injured, coordination with other communities' resources, and A, hours of operation, B, an active command structure, C, payment for hospital personnel, D, regulatory approval from CMS. I can see some answers there, which is, the correct answer is it's B. So this question requires your knowledge of contingency planning, on emergency response, something like that. So mostly as a leader, you have to anticipate the unknowns and remember the question, what if? So I would also encourage you to go to the FEMA website for additional information about National Incident Management System, because this will really come out in the exams, and also familiarize your disaster plan that will help you in the preparation for exams. So do you have any other rationale on this, Rick?
I don't really, because I mean, that one, being an emergency person, that one kind of jumped out at me quickly. But A, you know, your hours of operation pretty much are 24/7 if you got a true disaster. Payment, yeah, you're going to worry about, but not in the plan. That's going to depend on whether FEMA's going to pay anything out. Regulatory approval, you might be getting some waivers, but not necessarily within the plan, right? So the fact that they're coming in is something there, but the B is the big obvious one for me. So
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Next question, next slide. So committees are an important management tool primarily because A, they provide a mechanism for reconciling differing opinions and facilitating decision-making. B, they are the only way of providing for intra-staff communication. C, they keep staff up to date on new professional developments. D, they ensure self-expression and participation by staff. So this question is pretty much, the answer is obvious, but still, as we mentioned earlier, that even though the answer is pretty much obvious, you have still to go through and read everything. There might be the best answer in the selection, right?
yeah, again, there's two here that we could eliminate pretty quickly. B says it is the only way. And again, you always want to be careful of absolutes. Anytime they say it's the only or it's never, always, any of those absolute words, you really want to be very careful and make sure it really is that. D, they ensure self-expression. Ensure is another absolute word because ensuring means it always happens. And they might do that, but do they ensure it? No, they don't. So I'm going to get rid of B and D immediately. And, C, yeah, it does. It's potentially one of the reasons for committee meetings, but probably not the primary reason. The primary reason is going to be decision-making. So I would come back to A after I got those out.
Yeah, and the answer is next A. Yeah, and the answer A is the most collaborative and inclusive. Yeah, so one way to to get the best answer is look at the selection, which is inclusive and collaborative. So next question, next slide. So implementation or planning operation or operational planning can be correctly defined as A, a function of establishing the annual budget by accumulating department information. B, the process by which short-range objectives and actions are established and implemented in accordance with the strategic plan. C, annual process of developing, evaluating, and implementing goals based on community needs. And D, determining the major types of services offered based on profit margins. Let's see what the participants are, answering on this.
Yeah, A is, certainly part of the process, but that's not the planning itself. Planning includes the budget information. C is strategic planning. D is strategic planning. So we've got B by process of elimination here.
Yeah, next, the answer is B. And one more thing to remember is in this selection is, the order of the strategic planning. So you have to have your strategic plan first, then the budget comes first, then it's the next, then the implementation. So there's the knowledge of the strategic planning and order of implementation in here. So A is incorrect because implementation planning comes after the budget is approved, right? Then C is a definition of a strategic planning, as Rick mentioned it. So that's why, and D, determine the major types of services offered based on profit margins. This is a distractor again. So that's why I think Rick is correct. It's B. Next slide. So which of the following statements is in accordance with the principle of delegation? So again, one of the questions which is, probably easy to answer, but don't forget to go through all the selections. So A, the executive who subscribes to the principle of delegation knows what he or she wants to accomplish and exercise control over the work schedule of subordinates. B, an executive explains how she or she wants things done and points out how the subordinate's contribution fits into the overall plan. C, a successful executive gives instructions telling subordinates exactly how and in what sequence things should be done. Wow. D, in applying the principle of delegation, an executive makes relatively few decisions personally and frames orders in broad general terms. Let's see what's we have a mixed answers here. We have B and we have D. So
Well, think about, your conversation with your boss. Your boss is assigning you something. If she says this is what I want you to do, this is the work schedule, that's not leaving you a lot of decisions. So that's A is out. How she wants things done, it's nice to tell you how your contribution fits in, but explaining how she wants things done, again, that's not delegation. Giving instructions, telling you exactly how to do it, that's definitely not delegation. So we've got a false, false, false. D's got to be true, I hope, before I even get to it. And yes, that's a good definition of delegation.
yep, and the right answer is D. And one more thing to consider in the delegation is once you delegate, you're giving up. So to get results. So as a leader, you don't have a control. So in selections A, B, and C's, there's still a part of control of the leader there. That's why those are false, which is Rick mentioned earlier. So next slide. So what is the correct order of stages for accomplishing organizational change? A, identifying, planning, implementing, evaluating. B, planning, identifying, evaluating, implementing. And C, evaluating, planning, implementing, identifying. And D, planning, evaluating, identifying, and implementing. So this would require your knowledge of change management, organizational change management, and a critical thinking, which comes first, right, Rick? If you answering on this.
Yeah, I hate these with the lists. Every time I get one of these, I hate them. So my easy way of eliminating is say, okay, just with that first word, which ones could I eliminate?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not totally sure whether you identify or plan first. So I'm going to hold on those, but I know evaluation comes at the end, right? You implement, then you evaluate if you did it right. So C is gone. And then I've got two that start with planning and one starts with identifying. And identifying, then planning is one. And then D is planning, then evaluating. So we're going to get rid of D because, again, evaluating is too soon. B has evaluating before implementing. So that one's gone. So it has to be A. Even if I don't know if identifying or planning comes first, by knowing where evaluation fits in, I can come to A.
Yeah. So the correct answer is A, and exactly, someone, mentioned here in the chat box that first you have to know the problem to know your solution. So that's why you have to identify your problem. Then, and of course, if you identify the problem and implemented or plan and implemented, evaluating is the last part of every change management, correct? So that's why, critical thinking wise, identifying and evaluating are the first and the last, then you can eliminate the others. So.
But I still hate questions like this.
There's some actually, So next question. So in the healthcare field, the accountability of management is best measured by the A, balance maintained between service quality and operational efficiency. B, results shown on the annual expense and income statement. C, balance maintained between physician satisfaction and patient needs. And D, degree to which management needs are met.
No matter how much D sounds like what you really see with some managers, we can pretty much guess that's the wrong answer.
Mm-hmm.
Physician satisfaction, patient needs are one of the things we're looking at, but there's other factors besides that we have to deal with. Expense and income statement, no, again, that's one way of measuring. It's not it. So we can eliminate B, C, and D pretty easily, I think, even without realizing that A is the correct answer, which I believe it is.
And what's the correct answer? Next slide. A, yeah. And the A is the broadest selection because it talks about quality outcomes, service qualities and outcomes with optimal efficiency, which is cost. So always the accountability is balance between outcomes and cost always. So and B also, go ahead.
Well, I'm sorry. And then B, you could actually think of B as a measurement of efficiency, operational efficiency. C, you can think of as a measurement of service quality. So those two are included within A, which means, again, if you're kind of stuck on the fact that, yeah, physician satisfaction and patient needs, that sounds like a good thing. Well, it is a good thing, but it's included in the broader answer of A.
Yeah.
So I'd like to contribute something really quick.
Go ahead.
I'm guilty of reading this too quickly and getting the wrong answer.
Which one did you get, Nora?
I said D.
Really? That
You know,
doesn't say
I
much
should
for your
know
boss.
better. I've seen this question before, but I tend to forget between all the things. And I read this too quickly. I didn't read it backwards. You know how I always need it said to read this backwards. I didn't go there. I just went to the correct answer. I mean, to the incorrect answer. Just, oh, that sounds good. So don't be me.
Always read everything, right?
Lesson of the day, don't be me. So
Well, how many of us have had a boss who had their first goal with meeting their own needs? And we probably have all run into that person at some point and we hated them. So therefore, that really can't be the definition.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Next question. So in a dispute between two staff physicians, the primary role of the chief executive officer is to A, ask a representative of the governing authority to mediate a dispute, B, avoid any involvement in the dispute, C, meet with both parties as soon as the problem is identified, and D, request the appropriate chiefs of service to investigate and report back. Oh, I can see some answers here. See, I get C here. So really, this question really you need to have a knowledge on your role as a CEO in terms of dispute management for not only for physicians but for other staff. So so let's look at A. As a representative of the governing authority to mediate a dispute. I think I would say false on this because you don't want to go to the governing board already right away if there's a dispute for two physicians, and avoid any involvement in the dispute. As a CEO, you should at least be involved, in a way. Meet with both parties as soon as problem is identified. Would you meet right away? If I think this is a problem of chain of command. So then request the appropriate chiefs of staff to investigate and report back. So this is the best and broadest answer because you are considering the chain of command here. So it's very important that you have to follow the chain of command because there are some chiefs in each department, correct? So you have to go to the chiefs first, then let them handle, then they will report back to you as a CEO. You think?
I think Julie's point is also really good about resolving problems at the lowest possible level.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That you don't want the CEO spending, half of their life on solving lower level problems.
Mm-hmm.
But it goes back to also the delegation we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good point.
Okay. So next question, please. Next slide. So research in behavioral science has consistently found that once basic needs are met, staff are most motivated. A, by an incentive payment program. B, only by a significant increase in salary. C, by factors such as being kept informed. And D, when performance sets them apart from the group. What do you guys think is the answer here? I see D. I can see C. C. Okay, so,
So-
go ahead.
Oh, so this one, you can pull out either Maslow or Hertzberg on this one of what motivates.
Mhm.
And it's actually hinting a little more about Hertzberg because once basic needs are met,
Yep.
right? So incentive payment program, significant salary increase are both extrinsic. So under either Maslow or Hertzberg, we could probably eliminate those two. But yeah, both C and D look like interesting answers. I'm not sure that D is wrong, depending on what motivates you, right?
Mhm.
I'm motivated by winning. I just want to be better than everyone else around. Then D would be the right answer. If I want to be more of an inclusive thing, part of the group, then C would be the right answer. It would depend on my psychology. I think that by factors such as means that it's not the only one where D is saying this is the answer.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there in the room taking the test. I'm really caught between C and D. I'm going to look at the fact that C is a more inclusive answer because it's not saying it's total. It's not giving me the whole answer. So I'm going to go with C on this one,
Okay,
but I do like D.
Okay, let's see what's the answer. Next slide, please. Yeah, C is the correct answer. Factors such as being kept informed. So this question requires your knowledge of. You're right, Rick. It's about Hertzberg's motivation, and some the hygiene factors. So that these two factors says that money does not only motivate much, but non-monetary factors such as work climate, involvement, recognition, and being kept informed are necessary. So. Next question. Okay. So the cultural climate of an organization affects its recruiting procedure because A, it reduces employee turnover and absenteeism. B, organizations seek applicants whose attitudes, values, and goals are consistent with those of the organization. C, applicants who cannot support a given culture will be unwilling to work for that organization. And D, applicants look only to organizations that portray a positive cultural climate. So this is part of recruitment. I think we mentioned some of this during the HR, session. Okay. So I can see some B here. Okay, so let's go to letter A. So it reduces employee turnover and absenteeism. Is this part of recruiting procedure? I don't think so. So I would say false on this, right, Rick?
Yeah.
And B, organizations seek applicants whose attitudes, values, and goals are consistent with those of the organization. I would probably say mark this as probability. I will not eliminate it. So applicants who cannot support given culture will be unwilling to work for that organization. I think this is not true because how would they know the culture if they're not yet there, right? So I would eliminate these two. Then applicants look only to organizations that portray a positive cultural climate. Yeah. So this is also a probability. So I'm left between B and D here. So I would choose the most broadest and inclusive answer, which is organizations seek applicants whose attitudes, values, and goals are consistent with those of the organization. You think so, Rick? Yeah.
I think it is. I would not eliminate C because I think we do get hints of the organizational culture during the interview process if we're paying attention to it. And it's one thing we probably should be paying more attention to. But I think B is, again, the broader answer. It really is focusing on the recruiting process. And I would say B is right. Or, no, I would say B is true. I'm not going to say it's right because I think it's also one of the reasons we have trouble promoting diversity is we keep hiring ourselves over and over, but that's within B. So I'm going to go with B.
Okay, let's see what's the answer. Yay, it's B. Okay, thank you. Next slide. Oh, okay. I think that's the end of the management and leadership. So we are at the business section now. So I'm gonna turn over the slide or the floor to Tui. She's gonna be the one facilitating the business.
Thank you, Michael. And thank you all for your participation. I also invite and warmly welcome the engagement and also Rick's help lifeline with this. But before we get started into the sample questions and to kind of delve into the test taking tips, these are some of the points that the exam will include. I have not yet taken the exam myself, but with a lot of guidance and hearing a lot of success stories such as Sachin's, Nora's, Rick's, Michael's, and Jessica's, it's reassuring to know that I'll be successful in the coming years. But some of the highlights of healthcare business is your knowledge and some experience in planning processes for strategy and business, as well as the basic business contracts, impacts of how the socioeconomic environment has on the organization functions. Next slide, please. As well as some other ones that will be for principles of marketing and public affairs, such as media relations and community relations, and the techniques in the contract and service negotiation, and knowing the impacts and consequences of how business decisions are made within the healthcare system. Excellent. Next slide, please. So the first question here is the element most critical to the successful design and implementation of an executive decision support system in a healthcare organization is A, availability of software for updating the database, B, maintaining data confidentiality, C, involvement of top management, or D, availability of network computer equipment. Excellent. We're getting some responses in. And so far, I am agreeing.
So I'm going to look at A and D together. Availability of software, availability of the computer equipment. Sort of like, okay, both of those are important, but is that the most critical success factor? No, because you can always buy software, you can always buy network equipment. So it's probably not at the beginning. Maintaining data confidentiality is certainly important during operations. Is it the most successful, most critical for design? No. So again, I could eliminate three of the answers. I'm down to C, involvement of top management. And yeah, if you don't have top management involved, the system's not going to work there.
Yeah, and for me also the A, B, and D are part of the information system strategic planning. So specifically.
Yeah,
So
those are excellent points.
One more comment. In general, whenever you're choosing any enterprise software, the biggest challenge in terms of a successful rollout or even implementation is really engaging the users. And in this case, since we're talking about an executive decision support system, involvement of top management is critical. If you take that applied to any other solution that you want to incorporate into your business, you need to bring appropriate, for example, if you're looking at a clinical decision support system, you need to engage your providers, physicians, staff, nurses who are going to actively use it. So just keep that in the back of your mind, because this will come back again when we do the IS part of it.
And someone said, mentioned sponsorship, so involving top management falls within that line. So thank you for that comment. Awesome. Thanks. Next slide, please. So what is the fundamental reason for joint ventures between healthcare organizations? Is it A, they are allowed by EMTALA? B, they are formed because they offer legal routes to cooperative efforts. C, they are permitted as a means to share clinical and quality advancements. Or D, they are created to lower overhead costs.
Okay, so just the fact that they're allowed is not a fundamental reason, and EMTALA actually doesn't have anything to do with that, so I can get rid of A. They're formed because they allow legal routes. Well, okay, again, I'm back to they're allowed. You know, it's legal, doesn't mean I should do it just because it's legal. They're permitted as I hate that word permitted there, but as a means to share clinical and quality. Now, that may be a reason for doing it as a joint venture, the goal being sharing the quality. And they're created to lower overhead costs. Well, that may be one reason. It's not the only reason we create them. So I think I don't like D, although it's probably true. I definitely getting rid of A and B, but C seems like the best answer, even though I'm not comfortable with they're permitted as.
Yeah, I think following your rule, Rick, like the allowance and permittance when it comes to fundamental reason would also kind of like raise a flag for me to decide whether or not that should be chosen. But
yeah,
we will go
it
to
just
the
seems
next
like it's the best answer though of the ones left.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's see what it says.
No, it's B.
It's B.
All right. Well,
so I did a
still don't
little
like
research on this.
it may be the right answer, but I still don't like it. But okay, it's the right answer. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's the best answer for this,
Yeah.
for this question,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, because I think there's the word legal there. So ventures, joint ventures, we need to go through legal and making sure that those ventures are legally approved, right?
Mm.
That's how I
Yeah.
see it. Any ventures like affiliation or you know acquisition, they need to go through a legal routes, right?
Yeah. I actually had to Google this last night to see like how that reasoning is.
I was
And it
surprised
does-
also. I'm
Yeah.
looking to see, but yeah, I think that's why, because it's B, because of the legal routes there.
Legal arrangements. Yeah, that's a whammy. So just keep in mind some of the questions can throw us a curveball like that.
Well,
Mhm.
and Julie's commenting in chat that
Yeah.
fundamental is the word she focused in on.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
good point.
Yeah. Excellent. So we'll go to the next question. Thank you. In looking at physician compensation arrangements, a carve-out can be described as A, services that are reduced through a leveling of the PM per member per month. B, specific services that are omitted from a general arrangement and paid on a separate basis. C, reduced reimbursement for services considered unnecessary by primary care physicians. Or D, specialists that are offered a discounted annual payment for certain services. We already have answers coming in, which is excellent. Seems to be consistent. Yeah. So I also had to look into what carve out means. And so understanding a definition with this is pretty important to kind of dissecting the responses for each of these choices. And so with what carve out is, it's provided by a third-party vendor where specialized care services or products are covered. And it's typically supplemental to a person's standardized healthcare plan. And so knowing that and looking at these choices, A, it's services that are reduced through the leveling of the PM. It's the word reduced through a leveling is where I'm like, I'm not sure if A would have been the best choice for that. B is specific services that are omitted from a general arrangement and paid on a separate basis. And that seems to be more fitting to what carve out is. It's like if you have a chronic illness and or expensive prescriptions that require that type of service to be paid, and it's not part of your healthcare plan, that is like it's omitted from that general arrangement, and it's paid on a separate tab essentially. Then C is where like the reduced reimbursement for services considered unnecessary by primary care doctors. That's the antithesis of it. So that's eliminated, and that's false. And lastly, the specialists are offered a discounted annual payment for certain services. I saw that as a distraction, so I decided to choose B. And what is the response?
Twee, this one is one of those ones that if you don't know what a carve out is, you're going to guess, right? Because if you've got the definition, you go right to B. That is the definition of it. But if you don't know what it is, it's really hard to eliminate A, C, and D, right? Without having any idea what a carve out is. So carve outs, show up for behavioral health, for pharmaceutical benefit managers, things like that. If you know that, this is an easy question. If you don't know it, flip a four-sided coin.
Just mark it
Or
go back
die.
here.
Speaking as someone who negotiates managed care contracts and carve outs, B is the best answer because it's the broadest. Those others may be as a result of it, may or may not, but it's the broadest answer because that's what you're doing, is carving something out from a list, a menu.
Thank you all. See, I'm learning too, so this is really great. Yeah, like I said, I had to look up what this means. So studying is very helpful to be successful in this exam. Excellent. Next question, please. So when contracting for services, an organization typically finds the best value when the organization creates an internal auditor position to oversee the service, a board member negotiates for discounted services, the organization allows the prospective supplier to develop the contractual service expectations, or lastly, there is competition between several suppliers with proven performance and reputation. Great, handful of responses. More than a handful saying D is the correct answer.
I mean, A is a tool that you can use, but it's not the only one. B is definitely wrong. Keep in mind the role, the difference between the governing board and the management. We talked about it in the governing section, but you can see it showing up elsewhere, and that's definitely not a board role. If you allow your prospective supplier to tell you what they should sell you, you're going to end up paying a lot more. So let's get rid of that one quickly. And competition is good. We know that putting things out to bid gives us a better result. So we can eliminate A, B, and C, and then we like D. So D is going to be good.
Yeah.
Yay.
And this one also, I agree with Rick, competition is good. It brings a good result, because if you are contracting or doing something, you're right, here on you have to do RFP or RFI. So that's the contracting process.
And brief note, how many of you saw red flags on C? It's like, oh my God, let the supplier develop.
Yeah.
This is an example of this particular business knowledge area is not only related to healthcare. This is in general.
There's a question here that says, what is RFP? It is request for proposal. So if you would like to, contract to like a service, you want to contract it outside, you would like to request for proposal for different vendors, and you have to create your own selection process, who can give you the best service and best quality of service and best price, of course.
Next question, please. When data is scarce, the best method of forecasting is to use A, computer-based simulations methods, B, time series analysis, C, economic metric or econometric forecasting. Say that 5 times fast.
Econometric.
Econometric, thank you. And say it correctly 5 times fast. And D, qualitative techniques.
Well, this one's, again, I think we can logically go through it. So computer-based simulations are great, but you need data to create them, because if not, they're garbage. Time series analysis is assuming you've got more data available over that time series. So maybe it might work, but it also depends what you're forecasting and if the data is there. Econometrics requires an incredible amount of data. Those are the people who make economists look like nerds, right? They're really weird people. And then qualitative means, okay, we're doing it without numbers. So if we don't have data, what can we base it on? And even though it may not give us the best forecast, it may be the only thing left.
So let's see, we'll go with D.
Yes.
And survey says yes.
It's always, it's always for me, if the data is scarce, always go to a qualitative, qualitative process like focus interviews, something like that.
Mhm.
So this one is a prime example of my advice to read backwards, because you're talking about scarce data, right?
Yeah.
The method that is the best for scarce data. So that to me helped me focus, because I get this wrong all the time when I go really fast. I keep forgetting the answer. So prime example of what works for me anyway.
Next question is, most products and services enter a period of decline. Unless compelling reasons prevail, continuing a declining product or service is costly because A, it increases turnover of personnel will occur. Continuation will set an undesirable precedent, concerned with maintaining the status quo. C, the program will consume a disproportionate amount of management time and delay the search for a replacement. Or D, the organization will be perceived as being insensitive to the marketplace. I'm going to pass it off to Rick. This is a big question.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I was thinking, God, I hope she doesn't call me on this one. All right, so we're talking about product life here, and we know products, start out slowly, and then they go up, and then they reach a level point, then they decline. So increased turnover of personnel may occur. Well, it may. I'm not sure that's the biggest issue, though, and even a concern until the thing is way down. Continuation will set an undesirable precedent, maybe. So I'm going to hold on that one. Will consume a disproportional amount of management time. Yeah, if the thing is declining and you're trying to keep it alive, then you're putting a lot of effort in and you're not searching for the replacement. So that one seems better than B so far. And D will be perceived as being insensitive. Well, why do you care what other people think, how you're being perceived? Does that really change your decision making? Not unless you're looking for outside funding. So D is probably not the right answer. So I kind of like B and C. I don't like B that much though, so I'm going to stay with C. I think that's the most concern is how much management time am I putting in to keep this thing alive instead of just getting rid of it.
I see a lot of people answer C too. Great job, everyone. Yeah, even in my notes, I'm like, defer this to Rick or Michael to help break this down. So thank you so much for all of you being here.
You can't do that when you take the test, you're going to have to answer it. There's no lifelines available.
I know.
You can go 50-50 maybe, but yeah.
This will be the perfect time for me to do at least my heart focused breathing technique. Just take a few breaths. Yeah, Julie agrees.
Yeah, and the product, as mentioned, Rick mentioned, it's about the product life cycle when you have to go through like a bell curve. Then and just an FYI, it should be part of the strategic planning. Wherein are you gonna discontinue this product or replace it at a certain period of time? So
We just have to channel our Rick voice. But we have,
WWRD, what would Rick do?
yeah, what would Rick do? Yeah. Thank you. And we've got like some great stories and experience to help back up that answer too, to make it even like just more solid. So 7, before submitting a business plan for a new clinical service line to the governing body, the plan should be developed by A, recommendations from the finance committee on the basis of its estimate of income for the budget year. B, the heads of profit centers, considering each center's anticipated revenues and expenses with the CEO putting it all together. C, key executives after receiving recommendations from the heads of operating divisions and key physician leaders. Or lastly, the heads of the operating divisions with the CEO putting it all together.
When you read this question, see how much of the actual words you could eliminate and what you want to keep, right? Because that whole lineup of before submitting a business plan for and submitting it to the governing board, blah, 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 isn't the question. The question is who should develop the plan, right? Who should develop a business plan? And if you concentrate just on that, who should be developing it, it may help you eliminate some of the choices.
So we've got B and C. All right, survey says C. Yes, definitively C.
let's ask Julie because she initially answered B and C. So what were your thoughts about that, Julie?
So I was thinking that the people that run the profit centers probably understand their business the most and own, their finances and know what the barriers are as the lowest level, to Rick's point. But also, the heads of operating divisions, I guess it depends on the level of the business plan and what it's for. But I was torn between both of them.
Okay.
Yeah, I would just add that you're going to have to receive operational input in order to build a business plan to begin with. So I think that's why C is probably the best answer. A wouldn't be because it's coming from the finance committee. They're not going to, really need operational input, and that's where C comes in, I think.
And then it depends on the organization as well, because some operational budgeting or business plan, it comes from the top to bottom and or bottom to up. So it's kind of like confusing. So, but for me, I would choose C because I will go back again to the most broadest and collaborative way of doing business.
And realistically, you're not going to know 100% of these. If you can get it down to 2 of the choices, at least that's going to improve your chances of guessing the right one. So, sometimes that's all you can do is get it down to 2.
Thanks, Julie.
Thank you. A key concept for marketing healthcare is to A, adapt services to the customer's needs, B, maximize the customer's participation in the selling process, C, advertise and promote existing services, or D, emphasize specialization.
And the important thing is remember that marketing is not sales. Marketing is not promotion. Those are parts of marketing, but they're not synonymous, and we tend to generally think it is, but it's not.
So that's eliminated a couple of those letters.
Yeah, because it's eliminating C immediately. C is selling, right? But it's selling what you have. Marketing is asking what should we have. So A is really, asking what we should have. What services do the customers need? B is one mechanism for finding that out, but it's not the concept itself. And D might be your approach, but maybe not. Maybe your customers need generalists. So D would not be right as a general rule. So A is by definition and by process of elimination going to be the right answer.
Exactly. Yes. Yep, and let the product speak for itself. Yes.
And A talks about the purpose of marketing for me, and the B and C or it's the process of marketing. So you have your 4 P's in marketing, right? So it's part of the 4 P's in marketing, the B and C.
We'll go to the next question. The principal reason a public relations professional should be included in the operations plan following a Sentinel event is a PR professional would be able to determine the correct media coverage. B, they would be able to proactively develop a crisis communications plan. C, they would need to know in order to squelch rumors. Or D, a PR professional does not need to be involved.
Well, it seems like A is part of D, right? That you're developing a crisis communication plan. So that's going to include how do you underlining attempt to determine coverage, which is out of your control, but you can try to control it. Again, A is part of B. C might be part of B, but you're really not going to have good luck at that. D is going to be wrong just because it's wrong. So I'm going to go with B as the broadest answer.
And it is B. Great job, everyone.
The
Yeah,
plan.
delivered. Yeah, go ahead, Michael. Sorry.
I was just wondering, Ken, he said the plan.
The plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we all know what that is. So.
Yeah. Would you like to elaborate that, Ken? You said the plan.
Sorry, it speaks for itself, but I always like to go with plans because it's comprehensive. It includes a number of dimensions, and it's the most correct answer.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'm with Ken. I like plans for everything. That's what I do. I'm a planner more than anything else.
Great. Thanks, Ken. Last question. A healthcare facility can best meet its social and economic goals by A, developing a realistic and coordinated approach to long-range planning, B, devoting most of its efforts to the development of efficient operational practices, C, having a good public relations program which will focus the facility in the community, or D, providing all reimbursable services desired by the community.
Okay, so I don't like D because of the word all, right? Remember, again, be really careful with any kind of absolutes. So do we provide all reimbursable services? Well, it depends on what our plan is, but very few of us do all services, even if we get paid for them. Having a good PR program, I think I know that hospital that did that. Instead of providing good services, they just had a great PR program. Devoting most of its efforts to the plan. Well, no, I don't want to devote most of my efforts to developing the practice. I want to actually do them. So I'm back on A, process elimination, and it seems like a good answer.
And it is A.
Great.
For excellent. That joke did not roll out well. I'm sorry, everyone.
Great. Next slide. Okay, so before we will go to the supplemental questions that we took from the flashcards, I would like to open the table for any questions or any feedback from the group, from the participants. Okay.
This is Julie. I just want to say thank you. I mean, this is my second time in this session, and I wasn't able to join the first Saturday because I was traveling, but every time I join this, it just builds my confidence. So hopefully, crossing fingers, I study well, and with this, I'll be able to pass.
Yeah, hey guys, this is Rod Buzzes, and I very much enjoyed this. From my standpoint, this all seems to be really quite straightforward, and I'm wondering, do these questions really accurately represent the what's going to be on the exam? Because it's kind of making me nervous. It seems like it's pretty straightforward.
If you recall, well, so one of the first things I said is that we're not trying to rephrase this. We are trying to provide the best knowledge that we have, but we don't pretend to give you everything you need to know for the exam. There's resources, we're going to point those out. These particular questions come from previous study guides. They may not be the most up-to-date. Our focus here is to emphasize how the questions are structured and how to break them down. ACHE does offer excellent exam resources. They do offer the online tutorial, and they also offer a virtual series. So again, don't look to us just to provide the only things that you need to study. I mean, I understand your question, and I agree. These don't have the breadth, but I mean, it does bring up some stuff like some of the management techniques you need to know. Remembering how to order, first you need to identify, and then you need to measure, evaluate. But again, we're not trying to present everything that you're going to need to know to study.
Yeah.
I hope that helps answer that question.
Nora, can I jump in?
Yeah.
Even though we don't get access to the real questions that ACHE is currently using, they're very protective of those. We do have people who've recently taken the test, look at these, and they're parallel in terms of the type of questions. So it may not be the specific content, but if you've got the technique that we're talking about for answering questions, it should apply to whatever questions you're doing, and then the content that you're learning through other study areas. But again, ACHE does not let us have their current questions because they want to use them again. So very, very protective.
Yeah, just to add a comment from my end. To be honest, I haven't had enough time to go through the entire depth of all of the content. I did have all the 4 books that ACHE recommends. And I want to say I probably covered 70% of that reading material. And to be honest, the roles that you play or the experience over the years do come into play as you answer these questions. Not everybody is in HR, so they don't know all of the performance review models. You may not have a lot of oversight on reporting structures. So it's possible that you're not aware of some of those models. So reading does help. And that's why we recommend some of those books that ACHE provides to us. The last part I want to mention is that ACHE through this exam is not checking your depth of knowledge in each area thoroughly. That's why they made it an aggregate score. So out of the 10 areas, you just need to, over the aggregate, get the passing score, not necessarily have a minimum passing score in each of those areas. So look at the 2 or 3 areas that have the most weightage. If you want to focus on those and you're already comfortable with them, that's a great first step. But do touch on those other areas. Some of them IS and HR may only have 10, 20 questions, but find the time to kind of read through that, at least knowing that you'll be stronger in the other areas as well.
Okay.
Thanks, you all.
Thank you. So let's proceed with the supplemental questions. Maybe we can have Sashan put the PowerPoint.
Is this the one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as I mentioned earlier, these supplemental questions are from the flashcards. So if you have the flashcard, then you should be able to answer these questions. So we'll just go through it. Question number 1 is a process by which one person tries to influence others in the performance of a task and it unlocks people's potential to become better. management, influencing, leadership, transformational. So you can put your answers at the chat box. I'm seeing B. And the answer is leadership. Next question. Next slide, please. Formal authority granted by an organization to a supervisor and based on the supervisor's position on the organizational chart. A, informal authority, chain of command, line authority, formal authority. Oh, this is the selection D should be removed. Sorry, it should be selection should be informal authority, chain of command, or line of authority. And the answer is, it's line authority. Next question. Okay, a systematic national approach to incident management that improves the coordination and cooperation between the public and private entities in managing threats and hazards to reduce the loss of life and property and harm to the environment. National Incident Management System, contingency planning, situational planning, or implementation planning. And I can see most of you are getting the answer. Yeah, most yeah, it's and the answer is A. That's correct. Next slide, please. A detailed action plan of accomplishing the goals laid out in an organization's strategic plan and typically corresponding to a fiscal year or grant cycle. A, budget plan, B, operating plan, C, strategic plan, or D, capital budget plan. And next one. Okay, they're getting there. I can see some B here. And the right answer is B, operating plan. Next question. A scope of supervision that result in more levels of management and may complicate communication because it increases the distance between employees and upper administration. A, line authority, B, boundary spanning, C, narrow span of control, D, accountability hierarchy. Okay, I'm seeing A, D, C. And the answer is, survey says C, narrow span of control. So you need to know your span of control principles in this question. Next question, please. Authority given to individuals with expertise in specialized areas and limited to particular situations. Functional authority, positional authority, unity of command, professional authority. And next, I'm getting some answers here. A, D, A, B, some mixed answers, and the answer is A, functional authority. Next slide. The length of time it will take for a project or capital expenditure to recover its costs through its revenues. A, depreciation time, A, payback period, C, the break-even analysis, D, differential cost. I can see mixed answers here. Oh, most of them are mixed answers. Okay, B and C. I'm getting B and C. And the answer is payback period. It's confusing between the payback period and break-even analysis. So next question. A component of planning. Oh, A component of planning that analyzes what is happening politically, economically, socially, and technologically in the labor market and in the regulatory arena. SWOT analysis, strategic positioning, boundary spanning, or D, environmental assessment. Yeah, I can see, most of the people here are answering D, and the answers is D. Okay, next question. Unconscious attribution of particular qualities to a member of a certain social group. A, disparate impact, implicit bias, explicit bias, cultural diversity. Okay, B. Okay, and the answer is implicit bias. And the last question for the management is, next slide, a managerial function that must occur before organizing, staffing, influencing, and controlling because it determines the framework in which these other management functions are carried out. A, envisioning, B, innovating, C, planning, or D, disseminator. So this question, you need to know the different management function roles, or roles. And most of you are answering letter C, and the correct answer is C. Good. So I think we have enough time to go through the business knowledge additional questions. So
I just want to interrupt really quick. A reminder about the flashcards. Rod, this may help answer your question too. This is like the most up-to-date information that ACHE offers. And again, you can get either the definition or the answer on the flashcards, and it includes the reference for this information.
That's a great point, Nora. Yeah, thank you.
Got it. Thank you.
And comes in a big box, and you can access it electronically through ACHE.
Oh, perfect. What I need is a big box.
Okay. Sashan, are you ready with the body of knowledge, business? Okay, go ahead, Twee.
Awesome, thank you. This is going to be rapid fire. So one, the division of a market into subsets of consumers with similar needs and wants enables the marketers to focus their marketing efforts on consumers most likely to buy a product or use a product. A, segmentation, B, need, C, want, or D, demand.
I can see some A's here.
All right, let's go with A, some D's, but we'll go with, yes, good job. Next question. A long-term, formal, and mutually beneficial relationship between two or more parties to pursue a set of agreed-upon goals or to meet a critical business need while remaining independent organizations. Would that be a strategic partnership, B, strategic alliance, C, strategic affiliation, or D, strategic merger? And I'm very sorry, I lost track of who's responding. Is it B now?
Mostly it's B. So yeah, mostly it's B. Yeah.
Yes. Innovation that creates a new market by discovering new categories of customers, eventually displacing the existing market. A, buyer behavior, B, product life cycle, C, disruptive innovation, D, marketing innovation.
And I'm getting C's here.
Excellent. That's correct.
Yay.
Assimilation of the vertical components of an organization through greater internal control and coordination. A, vertical integration, B, horizontal integration, C, conglomerate integration, D, upward integration. Is it A?
I'm getting A here.
I know this doesn't mean that the questions get repeated, but just if it helps, this was a question asked this past December.
Oh. Okay, good to know.
Get it right?
Is it right? Is it A?
Yes.
And it is.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, good.
A systematic process for envisioning a desired future, and translating that vision into broadly defined goals or objectives and a sequence of steps to achieve them. A, trend analysis, B, situation analysis, C, strategic planning, or D, survey research.
And I'm getting C's here.
C's, okay.
I think someone put A for trend analysis, and trend analysis may help you envision the desired future, or envision the future, but it's not necessarily your desired one. It's just telling you where you are going, and it doesn't help you get to the goals and objectives. So A is included within C.
Use of data from the past and present to analyze trends and predict the future. A, trend, B, surveys, C, focus group, or D, forecasting.
Oh, I'm getting a mixed answers here. I'm getting A and D's.
All right.
So what would it be? There you go.
C, yes.
Trend analysis is, again, it's part of forecasting, but there's other forecasting techniques besides direct trends. So yes, and that should say past, not fast. But
Yeah.
But D is going to be the broader answer because it includes all the others.
I'll make that correction before we send it out. Thank you. All right, next question, please. Thank you. A contracting party's failure or refusal to perform its obligations specified in a contract. A, now I don't know how to say that word.
Malfeasance.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Michael. Malfeasance, B, defamation, C, tort, or D, breach of contract.
I'm getting these here.
Okay. I think we're at the last minute. So this will be the last question. Oh, great timing.
Thank you. So, Nora, do you have any closing remarks for us that we have ended the, the supplemental questions?
I do want to answer a question that came up about where do we get the questions and answers from the flashcards? And basically what we did is we take the definition, we know the answer, and then we add a couple of other things that might make sense. So we developed these questions ourselves.
Yeah.
So
we added some distractors.
yeah, exactly. So again, this is the beauty of these flashcards. You can come up with your own questions. And like me, I always forget the answers a couple of weeks later. So so it's a tool, basically.
Great. So it's 11:30, and once again, we would like to thank you for your participation today. And we hope to see you again next week for the 4th session of our Board of Governors review session.
I have a question. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
This is Damita. I just wonder, is there a way to study or get more in depth about the two questions that are almost alike, and there's just the nuances, a small nuance between the two? That's where I'm getting hung up on. I can do the process of elimination and usually get it down to the two, and then it's a guess.
Let me answer that. There are some that you're going to guess on. I mean, there's no way we know all of it, but if there's specific areas such as governance or quality or whatever, that's happening a lot, then that should tell you where to concentrate your studying, right? That you should be able to get the correct answer most of the time. It may be knowing definitions better. It may be just be able to apply the concept better. But at this stage of your preparation, I would say that should help you direct it to the right place.
Okay, thank you.
And what I've done in the past as I've been working on developing these is, I go to the well-managed healthcare organization, or I go to the HR book, through ACHE and look through the index. It helps. I mean, sometimes it's just right there. But like Rick says, at least if we can get down to 2 answers, and if one is more correct, and again, in general, the broadest seems to work the best.
But you can't do that with 100% of the questions, because 50-50 is still not passing, we think. So it improves your odds on the marginal questions, but you do want to aim for better. So if it's happening all the time, study more is the only answer.
Okay, thank you. If you have any more additional questions, please don't hesitate to email Nora or Sachin. You have additional, Nora?
Yeah, just again, this week you should have received 2 emails, the follow-up from last session and the pre-work for this session. If you didn't receive it, please, let me put my email address back on, and well, you keep talking, Michael. Sorry.
We also suggest that you take advantage of our YouTube channel, where we have uploaded all of our previous sessions from last year and a half. So,
Connie, and I know we don't, I think you've said before, it's a proprietary scoring mechanism, but I did see on some of the ACHE PowerPoints, do you guys agree the passing rate is generally something in the high 60 some odd % of getting the questions correct?
Don't know.
Don't know. Okay.
Don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yes, that's it for today. And I think Nora's email is in the chat. So please feel free to email her or one of us for any questions.
So somebody is asking for the link to the YouTube video. Those are in the follow-up sessions. As soon as Sachin finds that they've been uploaded, he inserts that in the follow-up.
if you would like to just give me 1 second, I can find the link and paste it here.
Can we just add that in the follow-up email later so that everyone will have it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is included, but I'll make sure to include that.
Yeah. Okay.
And again, your participation has been incredible. Like I said, we learn more from you than you're going to learn from us. So thank you, and from each other. So we appreciate your participation.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
So we'll see you again next week.
Yes, have a wonderful and safe weekend. And if you're up in Northern California, like in the Bay, please stay dry and safe driving.
Have a good day, all.
Bye, thank you.